At the stroke of midnight, in our grand Savannah home, my daughter Claire grabbed her birthday cake, frosted roses and all, and smashed it into my face, screaming, "This house is mine! Is mine!" The crowd froze, phones flashing, as icing dripped down my chin. She thought she'd broken me, but she unleashed a fury she'll never survive. The sting of icing lingered on my face as I stood in the grand dining room of our Savannah mansion, its 12-foot ceilings and oak-paneled walls echoing with the ghosts of better days. This house, all 6,000 square feet of it, was John's dream, my late husband's legacy, built brick by brick with his own hands. Every creak of the wide plank floors, every glint of the brass chandelier, whispered his love. I, Margaret Sullivan Maggie, to those who know me, had guarded it for 15 years since his passing, my heart tethered to its walls. But my daughter Claire, once my bright-eyed girl who danced through these halls, had changed. Now 38, her laughter was gone, replaced by a cold ambition sharper than a Georgia summer. Her husband, Ethan Bennett, a slick real estate developer drowning in debt, fueled her greed. They didn't see a home. They saw a cash machine to save their crumbling empire. That night, as the crowd's whispers faded, I wiped the cake from my eyes, my chest tight with betrayal. Claire's words, "This house is mine," cut deeper than any knife. I remembered her at 10, promising to cherish this place forever. Now, she and Ethan circled like vultures, eyeing the 2-acre estate for their next deal. "You're too old to manage this, Mom," Claire had said weeks ago, her voice dripping with false concern. Ethan nodded, his smile all teeth. "We just want to help. Help?" They wanted to strip me bare, but I wasn't alone. Dorothy Harper Doughty, my old friend and a retired lawyer with a mind like a steel trap, had warned me about Ethan's failed projects, debts piling up like storm clouds. And Tom Reynolds, a private investigator with a knack for uncovering secrets, was already on my side. This wasn't just about a house. It was about my dignity, my fight. As I stood in the silence of my home, the weight of Claire's betrayal burned hotter. She thought she could break me, but I was already planning my next move. The echo of Claire's scream, "This house is mine," still rang in my ears as I stood in the grand foyer of our Savannah mansion, the bitter taste of betrayal sharper than the icing caked on my face. The 6,000 square foot home, with its oak staircase winding like a spine through its heart, felt like a battlefield now. My daughter Claire, once the light of my life, had morphed into a stranger, her eyes glinting with the same hunger I saw in her husband, Ethan Bennett. Their plan was clear. Seize this house, John's legacy, to bail out Ethan's sinking real estate empire. But I, Margaret Sullivan Maggie, to those who dared know me, was no frail widow to be pushed aside. I'd spent 15 years guarding this home after John's death, and I'd be damned if I let their greed tear it down. Days after the party, Claire and Ethan returned, their smiles as polished as the mahogany dining table. They sat across from me in the parlor, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows through the stained glass windows. Claire leaned forward, her voice syrupy sweet, like she hadn't just humiliated me in front of Savannah's elite. "Mom, we're worried about you," she said, her manicured nails tapping the armrest. "This house is too much for one person. It's 2 acres, Mom, with that big garden and all. Let us take the burden off your shoulders." Ethan nodded, his slick grin revealing teeth too perfect for trust. "We've got a lawyer ready to draft the transfer papers. Simple, clean, no stress for you." I clutched my teacup, the porcelain warm against my trembling fingers, and forced a frail smile. "I'll think about it, dear," I said softly, my voice a mask of hesitation. But inside, my blood boiled. Their words were a velvet glove over a fist, and I saw right through them. They thought I was a tired old woman, too weak to fight. They were wrong. That night, alone in the study, I replayed their words in my mind, each one a fresh cut. I needed proof, not just of their greed, but of the lengths they'd go to steal what was mine. That's when I called Dorothy Harper Doughty, my oldest friend. a retired lawyer whose sharp mind could slice through lies like a hot knife through butter. I met Dottie at a quiet cafe 3 miles from the mansion, far from prying eyes. The air smelled of coffee and magnolia blossoms, a faint reminder of Savannah's charm, but my heart was heavy with rage. "They're after the house, Dottie," I said, my voice low but shaking with fury. "Claire's not my little girl anymore. Ethan's turned her into a predator." Dottie's eyes, sharp as ever behind her silver-rimmed glasses, narrowed. "They're not just greedy, Maggie. They're desperate. Ethan's projects are bleeding cash hundreds of thousands in debt. That house is their lifeline." She leaned closer, her voice a whisper. "You need evidence. Hard evidence. I know a guy, Tom Reynolds, a private investigator. He's discreet, thorough. He'll dig up their dirt." I nodded, my resolve hardening like the oak floors of my home. "Get him," I said. "I want to know everything." Back at the mansion, I played the part they expected. The fragile widow, overwhelmed by the weight of a big house. Claire visited again, this time with a leather folder stuffed with papers. "Mom, just sign here," she coaxed, her voice dripping with fake concern. "It's for your own good. You don't need this stress." Ethan chimed in, his eyes gleaming like a snake's. "We'll handle everything, taxes, maintenance, all of it. You can relax." I hesitated, letting my hands shake just enough to sell the act. I need time," I murmured, watching their faces tighten with impatience. That evening, I crept down the hall, my slippers silent on the hardwood. The door to the guest room, where Claire and Ethan were staying, was ajar. Their voices drifted out low and urgent. "She's stalling," Claire hissed. "We need that signature before she talks to anyone else." Ethan's voice was colder, sharper. "Dr. Coleman's ready. He'll sign off on her mental decline, say she's confused, unfit. Once we get that, the court hands us the deed. No questions asked." My heart pounded, not with fear, but with a white-hot anger that threatened to consume me. They weren't just after my home, they wanted to erase my mind, my dignity, my very existence. I slipped back to my study, locking the door behind me. My hands shook as I dialed Dottie again. "They're planning to have me declared incompetent," I whispered, my voice cracking under the weight of their betrayal. "They've got a doctor in their pocket." Dottie's response was immediate, fierce. "That's fraud, Maggie. Elder abuse. We'll nail them. Tom's already on Ethan's trail bank records. Shady deals. Keep them talking. Play weak. We're building a case that'll bury them." As I hung up, the grandfather clock in the hall chimed, its deep toll echoing through the silent house. Claire and Ethan thought they were closing in, tightening their trap. But every word they spoke, every lie they spun, was another nail in their own coffin. I wasn't just fighting for my house anymore. I was fighting for my life. The grandfather clock's chime faded into the heavy silence of my Savannah mansion, each tick a reminder of the betrayal slicing through my heart. I, Margaret Sullivan Maggie, to those who once loved me, stood alone in the library, the 6,000 square foot house, closing around me like a tomb. Claire's words from that night, "This house is mine," echoed sharper than ever. But it was Ethan's cold plan to have me declared unfit that burned deepest, a wound that bled with every breath. My daughter, my only child, had become a stranger, her greed twisted by Ethan Bennett's schemes to save his crumbling real estate empire. I'd heard their whispers, their plot to steal John's legacy, but nothing prepared me for the agony that awaited in the pages of his past. I sank into the leather armchair, the one John used to read in, its worn arms still carrying the faint scent of his pipe tobacco. The library's oak shelves loomed over me, lined with books and memories of a life we built together. My fingers trembled as I pulled a small, dusty box from the top shelf, hidden behind a row of novels. Inside was a bundle of letters, tied with a faded red ribbon. John's letters, written in his final months, when cancer had already begun to steal him away. I hadn't touched them in 15 years, too afraid of the grief they'd unleash. But tonight, With Claire's betrayal raw in my chest, I needed his voice, his strength. I untied the ribbon, and the first letter fell open, John's steady handwriting a lifeline across time. "Maggie, my love," it began. "Claire's ambition worries me. She's bright, but her heart's too easily swayed by promises of wealth. Ethan's no good for her. He sees our home as a prize, not a legacy. If I'm gone, protect this house. It's not just bricks and 2 acres. It's us." My breath caught, a sob clawing its way up my throat. I saw Claire at 12, her pigtails bouncing as she ran through the garden, promising, "Mom, I'll keep this house forever, just like Daddy wanted." That girl was gone, replaced by a woman who'd smeared cake across my face, who'd plotted to lock me away like some fragile relic. Tears blurred the ink as I read on. "You're stronger than you know, Maggie," John wrote. "Don't let anyone make you doubt that, not even Claire." Each word was a dagger, twisting deeper. I remembered the nights I'd held Claire after John's death, wiping her tears as she whispered, "I'll make you proud, Mom." Proud? Now she stood with Ethan, scheming to strip me of everything: my home, my dignity, my mind. The pain was unbearable, a crushing weight that made the 12-foot ceilings feel like they were collapsing. "How did I lose her, John?" I whispered to the empty room, my voice breaking. "How did my little girl become this monster?" I clutched the letter to my chest, the paper crinkling against my sweater. The library's silence was suffocating, broken only by the distant hum of Savannah's night. I saw Claire's face again, not the venomous glare from the party, but the soft smile of a child who once loved this house as much as I did. That memory hurt worst of all, a love I'd nurtured, now turned against me like a blade. I wanted to scream, to tear down the walls and demand why she'd chosen greed over family. But rage wouldn't save me. John's words echoed, "You're stronger than you know." He was right. I wasn't broken, not yet. I stood, wiping my tears with the back of my hand, the letters still trembling in my grip. Claire and Ethan thought they could erase me, lock me away in some facility while they sold this house for millions. But they didn't know the fire they'd ignited. I slipped the letters back into the box, my hands steadier now. Dorothy Harper Dottie, my rock, had already connected me with Tom Reynolds, the investigator digging into Ethan's debts. Their plan was unraveling, and I was weaving one of my own. As I left the library, the oak door clicking shut behind me, I felt a shift inside. The pain was still there, raw and jagged, but it was fuel now. Claire had drawn first blood. I'd draw the last. Maggie Fan Kong, 12 o'clock to 18 o'clock. The Savannah mansion stood silent under the weight of a humid Georgia evening, its 6,000 square feet, holding secrets as heavy as the oak beams in its walls. I, Margaret Sullivan Maggie, to the few who still cared, had carried the pain of Claire's betrayal like a stone in my chest, her cake-throwing tantrum and Ethan's cold plot to declare me unfit burning behind my eyes. John's letters, read in the lonely library last night, had torn open old wounds, but they'd also lit a fire. My daughter and her scheming husband thought they could strip me of my home, my dignity. They were about to learn how wrong they were. I invited Claire and Ethan to dinner, my voice calm over the phone, masking the storm inside. The dining room glowed under the brass chandelier, its light dancing across the 12-foot table set with John's favorite china, a subtle reminder of the legacy they sought to steal. Claire arrived first, her heels clicking on the wide plank floors, her smile as false as the pearls around her neck. Ethan followed, his tailored suit crisp, his eyes scanning the room like a predator sizing up prey. "Mom, you look well," Claire said, her voice syrupy, as if she hadn't smeared icing across my face weeks ago. "We brought wine," Ethan added, setting a bottle on the table, his grin too wide, too confident. They thought they'd won, that I'd fold under their pressure. I played the part, letting my hands tremble as I poured tea, my voice soft. "I've been thinking about the house," I said, watching their eyes light up like vultures spotting carrion. "It's a lot for me to manage alone." Claire leaned forward, her tone dripping with fake concern. Exactly, Mom. Sign the transfer papers, and we'll take care of everything. You can rest, travel, enjoy life. Ethan nodded, sliding a sleek folder across the table. It's all here, Maggie. Simple, legal, done in a day. His voice was smooth, but I caught the hunger beneath it, the desperation of a man drowning in debt. I opened the folder, pretending to study the pages, my heart pounding not with fear but with a fury honed sharp by John's words. You're stronger than you know. I'd spent weeks with Dorothy Harper Dottie, my sharp-witted friend, and Tom Reynolds, the private investigator whose quiet efficiency was my secret weapon. Tom had given me a tiny voice recorder, no bigger than a key, and I'd hidden it in every room Claire and Ethan entered. Their own words were my ammunition, and tonight, I'd fire the first shot. Let me make sure I understand, I said, my voice quivering just enough to sell the act. You want the house to protect me? Claire's smile tightened. Of course, Mom. We're family. Ethan leaned in, impatient. It's the smart move, Maggie. No one wants a court battle. I nodded slowly, then reached into my sweater pocket and placed the small black recorder on the table. Their eyes locked onto it, confusion flickering. Before I sign, I said, my voice dropping to a steely whisper, you should hear this. I pressed play. Ethan's voice filled the room, cold and calculated. Dr. Coleman's ready. He'll sign off on her mental decline, say she's unfit. The court hands us the deed. Claire's gasp was sharp, her face paling as her own voice followed. She's stalling. We need that signature before she talks to anyone else. The chandelier's light seemed to dim, the air thick with their panic. Claire stammered, Mom, that's taken out of context. Ethan's jaw clenched, his charm cracking. You recorded us? That's low, Maggie. I leaned forward, my eyes burning into theirs, every ounce of pain and rage pouring out. Low? You plotted to lock me away, to steal my home, John's home, and call me crazy to do it. You're not my daughter anymore, Claire. You're a thief. Claire's hands shook, her voice breaking. Mom, please, we were just trying to help. But her tears didn't move me. Not after the cake, not after John's letters, not after their lies. I stood, my voice steady now, cutting through the silence like a blade. I trusted you, Claire. I raised you in this house, gave you everything. But you chose greed over family. Ethan tried to recover, his voice rising. You can't prove anything. That recording won't hold up. I smiled, cold and unyielding. Oh, Ethan, I have more. Bank records, your debts, your deals with Dr. Coleman. Tom Reynolds has been busy. Their faces froze, the weight of their unraveling scheme crushing them. I turned, walking toward the foyer, my heels echoing on the hardwood. Dinner's over, I said without looking back. Think carefully about your next move. As the front door clicked shut behind them, I leaned against the oak banister, my heart racing with a mix of triumph and sorrow. Claire and Ethan thought they could break me, but I just turned their trap against them. Dottie's words echoed in my mind. We'll bury them. The recorder was only the beginning. Tom was digging deeper, and the evidence was piling up. They'd pushed me too far, and now they'd face the consequences. The war wasn't over, not yet. I straightened, my resolve ironclad, ready for the final blow. The air in the Savannah mansion hung heavy, the 6,000 square foot fortress of my memories now a stage for reckoning. I, Margaret Sullivan Maggie, to those who once stood by me, stood in the grand foyer, the echo of my own words to Claire and Ethan still ringing. You chose greed over family. Their stunned faces from moments ago, when I played the recorder exposing their plot to declare me unfit, fueled the fire in my chest. Claire's tears and Ethan's crumbling bravado were just the beginning. They'd smeared cake across my face, plotted to steal John's legacy, and tried to erase my dignity with a crooked doctor's signature. But I'd outsmarted them, with Dorothy Harper Dottie, my fierce ally, and Tom Reynolds, the investigator whose evidence was my sword. Tonight, their greed would meet its end. I'd barely returned to the dining room, the brass chandelier casting jagged shadows across the 12-foot table, when a sharp knock rattled the front door. Claire, still pale from the recorder's betrayal, froze mid-sentence. Her plea, "Mom, we can fix this," cut off like a snapped thread. Ethan's eyes darted to the door, his jaw tight. "Who's that?" he demanded, his voice betraying a crack of fear. I didn't answer, letting the second knock echo through the oak-paneled hall, each thud a hammer striking their fragile confidence. Maria, my loyal housekeeper, opened the door, and 3 figures stepped into the foyer. 2 uniformed officers, their badges glinting under the chandelier, and a plainclothes detective, his face stern as Georgia granite. "Mrs. Margaret Sullivan?" the detective asked, his voice calm but unyielding. I nodded, my hands steady despite the storm inside. "That's me." He turned to Claire and Ethan, who stood rooted to the floor, their earlier arrogance evaporating. "Claire Bennett, Ethan Bennett, you're under arrest for suspicion of fraud, attempted financial exploitation, and conspiracy to commit elder abuse." The words landed like a thunderclap, shaking the very walls of the mansion. Claire's gasp was choked, her hands flying to her mouth. "Arrest? Mom, no!" she cried, her voice breaking into a sob. Ethan, his face ashen, sputtered, "This is a mistake. You've got nothing on us." The detective held up a hand, silencing him. "We have recordings, financial records, and evidence of your payments to Dr. Coleman for a false medical evaluation. You're coming with us." The officers moved forward, cuffs clicking as they approached. Claire collapsed into a chair, her mascara streaking like black rivers down her face. "Mom, please, tell them it's a misunderstanding," she begged, her voice raw with desperation. But I stood tall, my eyes locked on hers, the pain of her betrayal now a steel rod in my spine. "You made your choices, Claire," I said, my voice low and cutting. "You thought you could sell this house, John's house, to pay off Ethan's debts. You thought you could lock me away. You were wrong." Ethan lunged forward, his voice rising to a snarl. "You set us up, Maggie. You'll regret this." The detective stepped between us, his hand on Ethan's shoulder. "That's enough, Mr. Bennett. You're only making it worse." As the officers cuffed them, the reality of their downfall sank in. Claire's sobs grew hysterical, her pleas a jumbled mess. "I didn't mean it, Mom. Ethan pushed me." But her words were hollow, drowned by the memory of John's letters, warning me of her ambition. Ethan's protests faded as they were led through the foyer, past the oak staircase that John had carved with his own hands. Outside, the 2-acre lawn was lit by flashing blue lights. The police cruisers parked along the driveway. Neighbors gathered beyond the iron gates, their whispers buzzing like cicadas in the Savannah night. Mrs. Larson from across the street clutched her shawl, her eyes wide. The Thompsons' teenage son held up his phone, capturing the scandal for all of Savannah to see. I stood on the front steps, the humid air heavy with jasmine and justice. "Mrs. Sullivan," the detective said, turning to me, "we'll need your statement, but the evidence is airtight." "Tom Reynolds did good work." I nodded, my voice steady. "Thank you, detective. I want this finished." As the cruisers pulled away, Claire's tear-streaked face pressed against the window. I felt no pity, only a cold clarity. They'd tried to break me, to tear down the home John and I built. But I'd protected it, just as he'd asked. The gates clanged shut, sealing the mansion from the world. I turned back inside, the silence wrapping around me like a shield. The war wasn't over, paperwork and court dates loomed, but I'd won this battle. Dottie's voice echoed in my mind. "We'll bury them." I believed her. The house, my sanctuary, stood firm, and I was ready to defend it to the end. The Savannah mansion stood resolute under the moonlit sky, its 6,000 square feet a testament to my unyielding spirit. I, Margaret Sullivan Maggie, to those who knew my heart, watched the police cruisers vanish down the 2-acre driveway, their blue lights fading into the humid Georgia night. Claire's tear-streaked face, pressed against the cruiser window, and Ethan's defeated snarl lingered in my mind, but they no longer held power over me. The front door closed with a heavy thud, sealing out the chaos of their betrayal. Claire had thrown cake in my face, screaming, "This house is mine." Ethan had schemed to have me declared unfit, but I'd turned their greed against them with recordings, evidence, and the iron will John's letters had reignited. Dorothy Harper Dottie, my sharp-minded friend, and Tom Reynolds, the investigator who'd unearthed their lies, had helped me bury them. This house, John's legacy, was mine again, untouched by their grasping hands. I walked through the grand foyer, my heels clicking on the wide plank floors, each step a reclaiming of my home. The oak staircase, carved by John's hands, gleamed under the chandelier's glow, whispering memories of better days. I paused at the family portrait on the wall, Claire at 16, her smile bright, John's hand resting proudly on her shoulder. That girl was a ghost now, replaced by a woman who'd chosen Ethan's ambition over family. The pain of her betrayal still stung, a raw ache in my chest, but it no longer consumed me. I'd fought for this house, for my dignity, and I'd won. "You were right, John," I whispered, my voice steady in the silence. "I'm stronger than I knew." Outside, Savannah buzzed with gossip. Neighbors lined the iron gates, their whispers carrying across the 2-acre lawn. "Mrs. Larson murmured to her husband. Maggie showed them, didn't she?" The Thompson's son, still filming with his phone, captured the scandal for all to see. The story of Claire and Ethan's downfall would spread through Savannah's coffee shops and book clubs, a cautionary tale of greed undone. I didn't care. Let them talk. Let them see the woman they'd underestimated, the widow they thought too frail to fight. I'd stood on the front steps as Claire and Ethan were led away, my spine straight, my eyes unflinching. This wasn't just about a house, it was about proving I wasn't broken. I settled into the library, the same room where John's letters had torn my heart open. The leather armchair welcomed me, its familiar creak a comfort. I poured a cup of chamomile tea, the steam curling like a promise of peace. The 12-foot shelves loomed around me, holding decades of memories, John's laughter, Claire's childhood, our family's joy. Those memories were mine again, no longer tainted by Claire's betrayal. I sipped the tea, its warmth grounding me, and let the silence of the mansion wrap around me like a shield. Maria, my housekeeper, appeared at the door, her voice soft. "Ma'am, do you need anything?" I smiled, my first real smile in weeks. "Just this, Maria. Just this." The weight of the fight lingered: court dates, legal battles, the final unraveling of Claire and Ethan's schemes. But I was ready. Dottie had called earlier, her voice brimming with pride. "You did it, Maggie," she'd said. "The trust is ironclad, and their fraud charges will stick. They won't touch a brick of that house." Tom Reynolds had sent a text, brief and professional. "More evidence coming. They're done." I set the teacup down, my hands steady, my heart calm for the first time in months. The mansion, with its oak beams and stained glass windows, felt alive again, breathing with me. I wasn't just its keeper, I was its heart. As I rose, the grandfather clock chimed midnight, its deep toll a reminder of the night Claire's betrayal began. But now, it marked a new chapter. I walked to the window, the 2-acre garden stretching out under the stars, its magnolias swaying in the breeze. This was my home, my sanctuary, reclaimed from those who'd tried to tear it away. The pain of losing Claire would never fully fade, but I'd found something stronger, myself. The fight had cost me my daughter, but it had given me back my power. I turned from the window, my resolve unshakable, ready to share my story with the world. The Savannah mansion stood quiet now, Its 6,000 square feet no longer a battleground but a sanctuary reclaimed. I, Margaret Sullivan Maggie, to those who'd seen my fire sat in the library, the weight of Claire's betrayal and Ethan's greed fading like the echoes of police sirens in the Georgia night. The oak shelves around me, the 2-acre garden outside, and the oak staircase John built, they were mine again, unshaken by the hands that tried to tear them away. But this victory wasn't just mine. It was a story for every soul who'd ever been underestimated, every heart betrayed by those they loved most. As I sipped my chamomile tea, the steam curling in the lamplight, I felt a surge of purpose. My fight wasn't over. It was time to share it, to ignite others with the same strength that carried me through. I leaned forward, my voice steady, speaking to you, the ones watching from your homes across America. Have you ever been betrayed like I was? I asked, my words sharp with the pain of Claire's cake in my face. Her scream, "This house is mine," still raw. Have you ever had someone you trusted try to strip away what you built? Comment below. Tell me your story. Did you fight back? Did you win? I paused, letting the question hang like the humid savanna air. Share this video with someone who needs to know they're not alone. Let's show the world what happens when greed meets grit. And if my fight moves you, hit that subscribe button. Join me to hear more stories of strength, of standing tall when the world expects you to fall. Maria stepped into the library, her quiet presence a reminder of loyalty in a world of deceit. "Ma'am, the neighbors are still talking," she said softly, a faint smile on her lips. "Good," I replied, my voice firm. "Let them talk. Let everyone know." This wasn't just about a house, it was about proving no one could break me. I looked out at the garden, the magnolias swaying under the stars, and felt John's words from his letters. "You're stronger than you know." Now, it was time to pass that strength on, to light a fire in others. The next chapter waited, one where my story would teach a lesson no one could ignore. The Savannah mansion exhaled into the stillness of the night. Its 6,000 square feet no longer a battlefield but a monument to my unbroken spirit. I, Margaret Sullivan Maggie, to those who'd witnessed my fight, stood in the grand foyer, the oak staircase rising behind me like a silent guardian, the echoes of Claire's betrayal, her cake smashing into my face with a venomous, "This house is mine," had faded. Ethan's cold scheme to declare me unfit, exposed by my recorder and Tom Reynolds' relentless evidence, was now a crumbling ruin, carted away in handcuffs under the flashing blue lights. Dorothy Harper Dottie, my fierce ally, had promised we'd bury their greed, and we had. The 2-acre estate, John's legacy, was mine, its magnolias swaying in the Georgia breeze, as if nodding in approval. But as I stood here, the weight of victory settled beside a deeper truth. This fight had cost me my daughter, yet it had given me back myself. I walked to the library, the heart of this home, where John's letters had torn me open and rebuilt me stronger. The 12-foot shelves loomed like sentinels, guarding decades of love and loss. I sank into the leather armchair, its creak a familiar embrace, and let the silence speak. This house wasn't just brick and mortar. It was a testament to resilience, to standing tall when the world expects you to crumble. Claire and Ethan saw me as a frail widow too old to fight, but they forgot who I was. John knew. His words, inked in fading letters, had reminded me, "You're stronger than you know." And I was. I'd faced their lies, their cruelty, and I'd won not with rage, but with quiet, unshakable resolve. This is the lesson I carry now, and it's one I share with you. Strength isn't measured by years or the lines on your face. It's forged in the choices you make when betrayal cuts deepest. For every one of you watching, guarding your own legacy, your home, your family, your dignity, know this. No one can take what's yours unless you let them. Protect it. Seek allies, like I found in Dottie and Tom. Secure your future, talk to a lawyer. Lock your assets in a trust. Stand firm. Don't let greed, even from those you love, dim your light. I learned it the hard way, through tears and a cake-stained face. But I'm here, unbroken, because I chose to fight. I turned to the window, the Savannah night stretching beyond the glass, the garden's shadows soft under the stars. Maria's quiet footsteps paused at the door. "Ma'am, the house feels different tonight," she said, her voice warm. "It feels free." I nodded, a faint smile breaking through. "It is, Maria. So am I. My story isn't just mine, it's yours too. If it's moved you, stirred something in your heart, I ask you this. Share it. Drop a comment below. Have you faced a betrayal like mine? How did you rise? Click that like button if you believe in standing strong, and subscribe to the Unwanted Revenge to hear more stories of grit and triumph. Let's light a fire together, one that says no one can break us. This house, this life, is mine, and yours is waiting for you to claim it.